Hello everyone, and welcome to the Colorful Carnations vlog hop. This is Linda, and I have a fun card to share with you. So grab your supplies and let's get started. Links to these supplies with the hop and giveaway details are in the description below. I'm using 3x6" heavy cardstock that I've pulled from my scrap pile, and I've attached it to the sticky mat of my Altenew Stampwheel. Next, I'm going to grab the single carnation from the Grand Carnations stamp set and position it for inking with Altenew's Obsidian. This is some great ink here. And there it is, and oh wow, okay. Well, I'm being super careful while I'm inking so I don't get my new toy dirty, but you can easily clean it with just some baby wipes, so no worries. Okay, so you press and lift, and there it is, a beautifully stamped flower. I like to use my spatula tool to lift my project up like a cookie. So now for some embossing. I'm using Altenew's clear embossing powder. Grab that powder and just pour it on there, and then you gently just tap it off, the excess, and use the heat tool to set it. Now you're going to grab one of the leaves, and I've just put it on this stamping block, and I'm going to fill these two spaces that are left here on the paper, so I'm not letting anything go to waste. And I use the embossing powder one more time. Again, it's clear. And the heat tool to magically change it, set it in place. Okay, grab your Altenew artist markers in shades of green for the leaves and beautiful pinks for the petals. Ready? Let's get started. I'm using the brush nib of the pen to feather each stroke and flick it out so that the color gets lighter at the ends. And I'm also using darker colors in the middle of the leaf as well as towards the tip at the bottom, because that's where I'm imagining less light to be. Start with your lightest shade and then work your way to your darkest shade, returning to your lightest shade in order to blend your colors together. And don't forget that when the colors dry, it changes. So this is a great way to get layering effects. it is, your beautiful flower. And now you can get it all ready to go with your die cutting machine. I'm using my little blossom flower here and running it through with a metal shim. I don't know if I needed the metal shim, but I put it in there just in case, give it a little more thickness, and it worked great. And here it is. There. I have the 2 leaves and the cutout flower ready to go. Now you're going to take your backdrops, and I'm putting some tape on either side, sticky side up, and rolling another piece so that I can stick the paper to my mat. And then I put the stencil over the top. I'm using a sponge applicator with Lost Shadow Oxide ink, or Distress ink, I'm sorry. Either one would work though. And I'm moving up and down. And when I'm done, I have a beautiful backdrop, and I'm just reapplying the tape to the smaller backdrop. There's my big one. I'm going to do it again. And just like before, up and down strokes, one direction. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I wanted it to have a particular texture to it. Now your backdrops are ready for your postage frames that you should already have die cut. Now for the sentiment, I've used the Love You sentiment, and I die cut it out of black cardstock scrap that I had. You only need 3, but you could do 4 like I have here if you'd like. Gluing them together with clear drawing glue. You're going to gently press them together one on top of the others till you have them all stacked, lining up the edges. So it makes a really nice sentiment that pops off the page. Here's your A2 size base card and the black mat that goes on top of it, which is 1/8 of an inch smaller all the way around. Then it's your large backdrop with the large mega postage frame to go on top of that. Then you have the smaller backdrop with the smaller postage frame. And that won't stay like that, but it's just, this is a dry layout. Your flower, the sentiment on top of the small postage, and a couple of leaves. This is what you need to do before you actually set everything in place. Okay, grabbing my pencil, I am lightly drawing some lines. These are where I'm going to cut my small backdrop with the frame. And so you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut just before those lines, giving you a bit of a frame in order to glue and attach to the other postage frame. And I am using gigantic scissors. I just grabbed the first ones that were around. These are enormous. I don't know why I used these. This is ridiculous. Okay, so this is for comedic relief. Let's just pretend I did this on purpose so that you would just start laughing. This is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, that's all cut. Let's move on, shall we? All right, so you're going to need clear glue. That's what I used so I could have some wiggle time, and attached it to the bigger postage frame. And then you're going to grab your large backdrop with the stripes, and you're going to glue that to the large postage frame. And right here, I'm lifting it up at the bottom so that I can apply some glue to the smaller backdrop and then have that set in place, because that's not going to be popping off. And once that's set in place, we go on to the next step. Here we're going to add the flower. I used foam on the back of the flower, including the stem, placed it on everything except the stem is under at the bottom, okay? But you can do it however way you wish. And now I'm going to glue the sentiment onto the small backdrop inside the small postage frame with the clear glue. And you got to make sure you get it just right. I like using the glue in cases like this because that way it's not set in stone yet until it's dried, and that gives you time to work with it, which is great. So I got that done, and now I know I want to add my leaf on the outside, so I'm going to add some more foam tape to the back of I'm just going to add the foam to the back of the backdrop. And I got my non-stick scissors, my small ones, this time to do that. With the foam in place, I'm now placing the front to the mat, making sure it's secure. And now I want to play with things like the leaves. I'm going to put some foam dots on the back of the leaves and put them in place. And I'm going to do that with the other leaf as well. I'm dry fitting to see exactly where I want it. Add the Altenew enamel hearts that are part of the dot set that you can get. And this is the rock collection for the color. And I love these. Absolutely love the enamel hearts and dots. They're great. And I'm now putting the leaf in. It's a little tricky, but I'm going to get it in there. I want it under the flower, but over the small postage frame, just like that. Now I have to attach the mat with everything on it to the A2 card base. So I'm using foam again. Wanted a lot of dimension for this card, so I'm using lots of foam. Putting the foam tape down, taking the backings off. This time I didn't need a pick tool. I usually use my pick tool. And then I extended the card base out so I could have it as flat as possible when placing it. You just line up your corners and make sure your corners are evenly spaced when you do this. Press it down, and then you have a card. And there it is. Oh, I love this card, and it's so fun to make. This one's saying, "I love you," and you can flip it open. And for another version, I had earlier made this one, and it's also an A2 card flip up. Hoping that you feel better soon. That stamp, that sentiment is part of the grand Carnations set. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being here. Lots of love and hugs to you. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, and it was so fun having you here. Please like my channel, subscribe, and then that way you won't miss another video.